Adam Leventhal and Brian Cantrell on dtrace. And I saw all these things that they were doing with dtrace, especially in the area of Java, and I was really impressed. And I figured I had to get involved with this, so I got involved with the community. Being a Java developer, there wasn't a whole lot of things I could do with the kernel, at least till I learned a little bit more. So I found the Chime project, got involved with that. I'll go a little more to the history later on, but Tom Erickson, the developer of Chime, really was a kernel guy, not really a user interface guy, so I helped as much as I could to improve it. I'm not really a user interface person, but I had a lot more experience than he did, so I was able to help a little bit with making things look a little better. I now work for Sun Microsystems. I've been working for them for about a year and a half. I work in the Open Solaris Developer Collaboration Team, which pretty much means I work on pretty much anything on OpenSolaris.org. So you probably have seen my name through that. I primarily work on the defect at OpenSolaris.org and bugs at OpenSolaris.org, which I'm sure you're all quite familiar with. I've also worked on a lot on the old website now. As of this week, it's now the old website. We had a lot of performance issues with the old website, which you may or may not know. The site used to be pretty slow at some times, and that's where kind of some of this dtrace and Java has come into play. I'm also the Chime project leader. There's, I think, 3 of us now. There's not a lot of people involved with Chime, but hopefully get some of you interested in Chime, maybe get and join the team. Okay, first, what is Chime? Well, let me ask, who uses dtrace in here on a regular basis? Oh, great, most everybody. Who's used Chime before? Anybody? Okay, one. Okay, this is good. So hopefully.
If you count firing up and quitting it again.
Okay, so hopefully that's perfect. Then so hopefully now I can show you a little bit more about it, and hopefully you'll want to use it some more. Okay, it is a graphical tool, which you probably already know that. Some of the things that it features as it graphs data. You saw from the last presentation that you can do graphing from the command line, but this has a little bit more power to it than just some plain text, and you can do colors and things like that. And what you really can't do very easily on the command line is plot data over time, which I'll show you later. And something you definitely can't do very easily in the command line is sorting, which I think is very powerful. You can stop, pause, and replay data, which I'll show you as well. You can kind of do that in the command line with a Control-C, but in scrolling back through your X terminal, but it's not quite the same as what I'll show you. And of course, it's all Java-based and relies on the dtrace Java API. I already mentioned Tom Erickson. He's really the founder and the main developer of this project. He wrote the dtrace Java API, and he was kind of thinking of a side project to work on to kind of demonstrate what you can do with this API. If you're not familiar with the dtrace Java API, it's just a way for a Java application to access dtrace. So he kind of came up with this idea of writing Chime, and it's a side project. It's not Sun sponsored, so he does this all on his own time, and I do it all on my own time. Pretty much everyone that works on Chime does this on their own because we enjoy it. And then you might be wondering about the name of Chime. At the time, everyone was coming up with visual that, visual this, so he figured he didn't want anything, visual dtrace or anything like that. He wanted some other sense, so he thought of hearing, so he thought of Chime and kind of like a tuning fork. It's kind of a stretch, but you can think of it when you hit a tuning fork as a chime sound. So that's where he came up with the name. Okay, now you might be asking, what do you need to run Chime? First, Solaris, you need the dtrace Java API, and that comes with Solaris 10 Update 4 or later. I've had a lot of questions from people that are interested in this, but they have older versions of Solaris, or customers have older versions of Solaris. So you need at least this version of Solaris. Nevada 35 or later, but now that Nevada is kind of an endangered species, that's kind of doesn't matter. And of course, any version of Open Solaris. And what's key is Java 6. because we've added some new features taking advantage of Java 6. And with Solaris Update 10, or Solaris 10 Update 4, it doesn't come with Java 6. You'll need to download that, add that on there. Just so you're aware of that. Okay, well, if you want to get Chime, the easiest way is through the dtrace GUI plugin, which I'll show you later. Or you can go to our new URL. Can you read that? I don't know if you can read that well back there, but just look for the Chime project on opensolaris.org, and you can download a package from there, install it, and it also comes with the source, so you can build it from that.
Sorry for interrupting.
Oh, no,
But,
please.
Are you collecting user feedback on the new style URLs? Because I'd like to give you some feedback.
I probably know what you're going to tell me, but go ahead and tell me.
Okay, the bin view and these plus signs are very counterintuitive, and if you compare them to the old OS project,
right.
blah, these hurt my fingers, and cutting and pasting them, and you have this bin view in there. So if you can find some aliasing or redirecting for that, that would be very nice.
That's a very common.
I said this earlier, but I forgot.
That's fine. That's been a common complaint,
Okay.
and yeah, there were. I'm not primarily working on the XWiki side of things, okay. But I will definitely let those guys know, because
so if you're doing a straw poll, I'll give you a couple hundreds of straws.
I don't think there's anyone that would like that. So I don't think you're. Yeah, of course, if you have any comments about the website, you can tell me. I'll relay those things. Oh, we have packages for both x86 and Spark, which is obviously pretty important for a lot of people. And we're not in IPS yet. Well, you can get it through the dtrace plugin through IPS, but that's been my task to do that. I just have been pretty busy with messing up URLs and things like that. So I apologize for not having that in quite yet. And one thing that you need to understand, which all of you run dtrace, so this is probably not anything new to you, but you'll need at least special privileges. The easiest is pfxx under OpenSolaris, or just running it as root. But really the best way, especially if you're running under NetBeans, you probably want to change your extended attributes, for user extended attributes there, so you can add the permissions in there, because I don't know about you, but I don't think you really want to be running NetBeans as root all the time. And to get started, it's pretty easy. As some of you already know, you just install Chime, run it, start it up, and just hit run on a trace. Most of them don't take a parameter because they're system-wide displays. But often they'll take a parameter like a process, a PID. Because obviously, you just think of what dtrace does, that you'll need to narrow it down some way. And once it's running, it works pretty much like any other GUI tool. You can sort on different columns by clicking on that, which I'll show you in a second. And you can pause, and it should be pretty intuitive. So, well, let me show it to you now. This is the old way. I'll demonstrate the interstat command. You can see it's kind of useful, but you're watching everything scroll by. It's kind of hard to see what's going on. So now this is the same exact dtrace program. We're going to run it from here. Can you see that back there? It's a little small.
I'm glad I'm sitting up front.
So we can sort, say, interrupts per second. We can do a secondary sort just by holding on the control key. So we can do percent over time, and we can also let me shrink this a little bit and just. We can right-click on one of our lines there. We can plot per second over time. And you can see there's actual clock time, because you probably can't read that right there. And this is one of the more useful features because you can see what it's doing over time. This interrupt area is very interesting. I'll move the mouse a little bit, get some more interrupts. We also can, something called set the moving average. Really what this is just, it kind of smooths things out. It doesn't, you really don't see things here, but if you're doing plot over time, it'll help smooth those jagged edges out a little bit. We can also look at the dtrace program that ran this. And I'll go into this a little bit later, but I think this Chime is actually a pretty good tool to help you learn dtrace, and you can run a trace like this, see what's going on, and then take a look at the actual code and see what it's doing. And here's the feature I was talking about where we can pause things. So now it's paused. I can go back. Right now this is set for 10 displays that I can see through here. Of course, I can increase the interval in seconds, which might be pretty important if something is moving pretty quickly. And we can go ahead and back and play it again. So as you can see, it works a little better than on the command line. Any questions about this or anything else you want to see while I have this up? Okay. And there's a few advanced trace settings that I'll show you. Basically, just right-click on this, and you set the dtrace options. And if you're familiar with the -X, this is all those settings right there. I've never had to change this, but Tom Erickson has told me that buff size and dynavar size are some things you might need to change, especially if big traces and things like that. So there's just something to keep in mind if you run into issues. Now I'll go over the pros and cons, at least my opinion of the pros and cons of Chime. Obviously the GUI interface, I know some people really don't like GUI interfaces, but I know I do, and it's a lot of, I think it's also good for newer users that might want to play around with dtrace. It's less intimidating probably. And it's also easy to use. And it's also great to be able to pause things because you're always tracing things that are happening in real life, and they happen pretty quickly. And I really like the plotting over time to see how things are trending, what they're doing. And these are things we'll go into later. Recording, which I think is pretty powerful. Drill down, which I think is the most important thing for diagnosing system issues. We'll go into that a little bit. And we can also run traces on remote machines. Of course, we could also do an export to X display, but that would be obviously pretty slow with something like this. But I'll show you that. Now the cons, the Java overhead. I love Java, but I probably don't have to explain this too much, that if you're trying to trace a slow system, you're trying to run Java that's doing all kinds of fancy graphing and things like that, you might run into issues. And I'll actually show you something later of a Java trace I was doing, and it actually brought my system to its knees, mostly because of the Java program, but I'll show you the recording of that. And it will not make you a dtrace expert automatically, which, I was new to dtrace thinking, I can use Chime, I can do all kinds of great things, and I'm looking at what does all this stuff mean, because you need to understand what those interrupt statistics mean. So just a little bit of a warning there.
Can you create dtrace scripts on the fly using Chime?
What do you mean by on the fly?
I want to add a custom script.
Okay.
I want to do a trace on a particular module. So instead of writing a one-liner, can I just create using the GUI tools?
Yeah, I'll show you that later when we add a trace. So I think the answer would be yes, that you can do, because we can add traces in the command line, and we can also play around with the traces while we're adding them. Chime comes with maybe about 75 traces. It might seem like a lot, but it's really not. It's kind of just an introduction. So I'll show you some of them. We have our initial traces, which is just what Tom started off with. We have some traces about zones, and we have several from the dtrace toolkit. We'd love to have all of them, but that's a lot of work. Is everyone familiar with the dtrace toolkit? Okay. And then we have some language-specific traces. Those language-specific traces are Python and Ruby. I really can't tell you too much about these because I'm not a Python or Ruby developer. But we have one very important one for Java called method times. I use that quite a bit, which I'll show you in the recording later on that I did. Just be warned though that it kind of slows things down. If you know much about doing dtrace with Java, you have to add a special parameter in there for method times, and it really does a lot. Because there's probes for each time a method's running, and it can get kind of big. So here's our initial traces. I don't know all of these, but one of the more interesting ones is the system calls, which we'll go into a little bit later in our drill down. You can see that. And then to go to our different categories is simply through this drop down. Like here's our dtrace toolkit. That's where most of our traces are. Like some interesting ones might be what's it that the hot kernel one.
Question here.
Yeah.
Especially in the syscall traces, is it possible to do a drill down on the specific process, for example, and look how the syscalls are spread over the various calls?
Yeah, I'll show you in the drill down portion. So we'll go over that later. That's why I just kind of passed over that. Like here's I'll just run stack size, and you can see each process that's up here and all the stacks that are associated with that. And hot kernel, I found this one to be interesting, what's going on. Like obviously right now, my system's not doing too much, so everything is in the wait state, which is no surprise. Okay, and I'll show you Python. So here's one that's it's a who Python, so what's going on in the system. So I'll create something to make it actually show something up and see he's showing who's doing something on Python. So this is probably where you'd start, find your process, and then drill down on that. And then here's Ruby, and there's the same thing here. Oh, I didn't have it running. Wow. I think at the point of that. And the initial trace, I think I mentioned method times. And here's the extended attribute I was telling you about for dtrace probes on Java 6. But I use this quite a bit because it tells you how much time you're spending in methods. So it's pretty helpful. Any other questions about any of the traces here? Anything you want to look at? Or